Welcome to the Missouri College Access Network for Journey to College. Thank you so much for inviting us to participate. My name is Francine Pratt, and I'm the Executive Director for Missouri College Access Network. We also refer to that as MOCAN. And with me presenting today is Keri Gilbert. She is our Senior Associate Director. You will hear from her in a few minutes. I want to give you some background of MOCAN. About 2 years ago, members of MOHELA, members of the Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation, as well as Missouri Department for Higher Education and Workforce Development got together to look at how can we showcase all of the good work that's being done in higher ed and even with DESE and workforce across the state into one location. There are several states that have college access networks. And so now we have one in Missouri. And we're so thankful that you are actually our first official presentation. We will officially launch in a couple of weeks. And so stay tuned for that. We'll talk a little bit more about that near the end of our presentation. So our initial funding came from MOHELA and Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation. What's really important, when MOCAN was created, it was created with representatives from across the state in all of the regions that pretty much came from private, public, and social sector that also intersected with business, community, and education. And our next slide, on slide 2, I'd like to share some information with you about our actual mission statement and why we're called to do what we do. So now we're on page 2. Our mission statement is to increase career and college, and I'm going to say that again, career and college, because we're here for both. Our mission is to increase career and college access, preparation, and completion in Missouri, in particular for students of color and students with limited resources, also known as considered underrepresented and underserved. And so we want to make sure, as a new nonprofit 501c3 organization with a board as required for 501c3s, that we're not duplicating the work, that we're actually focusing in those gap areas where that disaggregated data shows there's not enough access, there's not enough inclusion. We want to be partners across the state with private, public, social sector to actually be able to increase that access, increase those opportunities, and reduce those barriers. So what's really important in how we go about doing that, our focus is going to be on awareness, alignment, and impact measurement. And now Keri's going to talk to you a little bit about that.
As our mission states, MOCAN is working towards an increase in post-secondary access and success for Missouri students. Now, we're the Missouri College Access Network, and we define college as those valuable post-secondary education credentials received after high school. So whether that's a technical certificate or maybe an academic degree. We're bringing together the best practices from around the state, and we really are excited to share and learn from each other. We're also incredibly excited to align practices from higher education, workforce development, K-12, and business as we approach increasing access and success for students facing systemic barriers and other barriers to post-secondary education. And we're looking at the local, city, regional, and statewide level. We can't wait to start to measure impact as we bring the best together from across the state. In addition to an expanding research base, we will recognize assets and successes for students, counselors, advisors, and organizations. And I'm going to send this back over to Francine to talk about 5 of our focus areas.
Thank you so much. So we have 5 priority areas for this fiscal year that just started in July. Our first one is a stakeholder guidebook. We're actually creating one resource guidebook that will have contact information for students, for counselors, for entities, organizations, public sectors that all focus on the work that we're charged with doing in our mission statement. And so we hope to launch that by early fall and it will be on our website, and we'll talk to you about that in a minute as well. But it will be on our new website, and it will provide links directly to those entities. So you have one place to go to receive information that can actually help students and help the resource providers that are helping our students. Our second, which is really our priority right now, is looking at equitable internet access. We've had the pleasure of partnering with Missouri Department of Higher Education Workforce Development, DESE, statewide broadband, and other entities across the state to look at how can we increase not only broadband access, but affordable access for our students. One of the first areas of discovery from students K through 12 and also college students having to go quickly online to finish the semester because of COVID-19. Data was collected at the state level that actually identified where there was no internet access at all. And so what we're doing right now, we're partnering with those entities as well as other entities to figure out how can we, on a quick basis, short-term basis, provide better access or additional access with the new semester coming up. So that's one of our key priority projects right now, because the new semester will start in August. And so we want to see what we can do to try and help in that space. Just a reminder, MOCAN, we do not want to increase duplication. We want to focus on those gaps. There's plenty of folks around the state that are doing good work, and we want to be able to showcase that. One of the tools that we are creating so that we can really make sure that we stay focused in addressing barriers that were not caused by individuals, but caused by processes, procedures, anything in that realm, we're actually creating what's called an educational dashboard. So I'm going to hand this back over to Keri, and she's going to talk to you about that, and then I'll wrap up. Thank you, Keri.
Thank you, Francine. So the educational dashboard is going to be an interactive data dashboard that we're going to house on our MOCAN website. And it's going to answer 4 main research questions. So who already has post-secondary credential in Missouri? Who is receiving access to post-secondary education? Who is receiving preparation? And then who are the students that are completing post-secondary education? And just like Francine mentioned earlier, our focus is really on disaggregated data. So we really want to pinpoint the gaps. And this disaggregated data will allow us to look at these research questions by race, income, location. Are they urban? Are they rural? So we're incredibly excited to see what all of this data gathering is going to bring to us and what questions we're going to be able to answer from it. And I am going to send this back over to Francine, and she's going to finish us up.
All right. Thank you, Keri. So when Keri talked about the educational dashboard, it's a good segue right into best practices. There are several entities across the state that have already been doing a lot of research with the type of data that we're talking about. And so can you imagine if we're pulling all of that research into one tool as a dashboard? And so, no, we're not going to do that research because one of the best practices, it's already been going on. And so it'll be a tool to pull that so that it's very user-friendly so that you can see what's going on in any region across the state and very specific. So that does lead to our next focused area, and it is best practices. We want to actually take these best practices of work that's being done by the different regions, and I believe we have 10 regions across Missouri, and we want to partner with the individuals that are doing the best practices and actually the organizations and the entities to actually have webinars so that everyone can see and learn what these best practices are, and then even get an idea of how they can apply them to their region or their entity so that we can continue to help more people get additional education beyond high school, which will help increase our post-secondary attainment across the state. And so with the webinars, we're going to actually create toolkits with that webinar so that you have practical things that you can take back to your entity based on what you learned from the webinar. Now, in about a year from now, depending upon what's happening with COVID-19, MOCAN hopes to have a conference where we bring all of those partners, and hopefully face to face, you can have more interaction to learn the best practices and how we can continue to move our state forward. And of course, that kind of leads to our last focused area, and that's research and advocacy. Between myself and Keri and Carla Briggs, who was our senior administrative assistant, she's not on the call today, but between the three of us in our short time of working together, we've probably participated in over 90 webinars and workshops so that we can become very familiar with opportunities, with challenges, with next steps across the state. Now, 90 is not a lot when you think of how big Missouri is. So if you have an opportunity to suggest some best practices or advocacy or research that you would like to see, we're going to encourage you to use our new website, and it's www.mocollegeaccess.org. And that is up and running now. We will continue to update it and add information to it, but it does give you an opportunity to sign up for a newsletter. It's not being submitted yet, but as soon as we get to that point, we'll have all of your information. And then in the future, probably before October, we'll also launch a campaign for membership to actually join MOCAN. So at this point, we just want to thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be our first official presentation for the Missouri College Access Network. We look forward to partnering with you, to learning how we can help assist to make our state the best and the best and the best. Thank you so much. That concludes our presentation.